So Chiron ends up spending 3/5 of its cycle, or 30 of its 51 years, in just 4 signs of the zodiac, as you can see here on your screen: Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. And so it ends up 7-8 years when it is going through these 4 signs right here. And it's only like a year and a half right over here in this Virgo, Libra, Scorpio slice of the circle. So Barbara Hand Clow, who was the one who wrote the famous book on Chiron, The Rainbow Bridge, as we looked at visually, she called it that because Chiron can go to the unconscious and the consciousness. And as a matter of fact, it will bridge those two as it orbits between Saturn and Uranus. And of course, with Chiron, in regards to the consciousness, it is this effort to be in our body, to stay in our body, to heal that body, and raise consciousness. In other words, from the physical going to the metaphysical. The unconsciousness, Chiron can dip in there, and therefore it has its association with what we would call shamanism and the ancient wisdoms, and be able to take whatever is unconscious and make it conscious. Chiron is most well known as the wounded healer. And of course, if you look at its mythology, Chiron was a centaur that was immortal. It was wounded in battle and it could not heal its wounds. And it made a deal with Hercules to give up its mortality in order to be healed. So Chiron is about what we can let go of in order to heal. Can we let go of the wounded story, whatever it is for each of us? Sometimes that letting go will even include death. And of course, as we let go, then we're wanting to illuminate the wound, bring them into the light, into consciousness in order to heal. And then it's all about turning whatever is wounded within us into a gift or talent that we can then become a healer of and helping others. Chiron rules all the healing arts since its discovery in 1977. A lot of your alternative healing therapies and methodologies became more and more mainstream. And of course, Kairos is Greek for hand, which is how it rules all of the physical healing arts, especially Reiki, palmistry, chiropractic work, massage, etc. And so Barbara Hand Clow always thought that Chiron's energy was a sacred force. She has always felt that Chiron rules Virgo. Evolutionary astrology doesn't have an absolute opinion on that. It is quite likely that maybe it does, but at this point, most astrologers feel that Mercury, ruler of Gemini, also rules Virgo. Stay tuned. We'll see how we work through the observation correlation on this idea as time goes by. So here is something that I have always just known and spoken about for as long as I can remember. Every manifestation of a physical imbalance, every disease, has an crystallized emotional imbalance behind that. Every emotional imbalance has a mental imbalance or distorted thought behind the crystallized emotions. And every mental imbalance has a spiritual imbalance or a disconnect with source behind the mental distorted thoughts. So all illness starts with a spiritual disconnect, which then leads into mental distortions, which then crystallizes emotions, which then condenses down into the physical manifestation as what we call a disease. I call it SMEP, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. In that regard, healing goes the same way. Anytime you see that miraculous self-healing that somebody experiences, it starts somehow, some way, with a spiritual reconnect to universal source, an acceptance of how we are co-creators with source, an acceptance of feeling unconditional love from source. This leads to some type of a positive mental shift in our outlook, healing the distorted thought patterns that then condenses down into emotional self-acceptance and self-love. We thaw out or melt those crystallized emotions, and this then condenses into the physical release of whatever the manifestation or dis-ease is, as the body reestablishes health and healing and equilibrium within itself. Now, it always goes that direction, and I've always said, no matter what level it's manifested on, just ask the question, how do I heal it on all 4 levels? I have another slide on that in just a moment here for you. As Chiron makes this transit for the next 8 years through Aries, its polarity point when it's retrograde points to Libra. And so what will become more emphasized whenever Chiron is retrograde is the healing art of being able to listen and observe the other from their perspective, from where they are actually coming from. This allows us to give as someone wishes to receive versus projecting what we want to give them onto them. It also is a time period for improving communications. What better gift can we give someone than actually being able to listen to them and hear them? It's a way to be seen. It also means we have to be open to take in the feedback from others as well. If we're listening to them, they have something to say to us. They have something to say about us as well. Can we take the feedback? Doesn't mean you have to agree, but can you listen and observe what's being said? Retrogrades are trying to always throw off conditioning factors and become more and more objective and individualistic with who we essentially are. Chiron retrograde can be a time period to accelerate anything that is ready to be healed within us. So obviously, with a retrograde that points to Libra, we're going to review and search for wherever we need fairness and balance in any situation, where we need to take action with others, for others, and of course, reviewing that fairness and equality is trying to let go of the dominated imbalances in relationships. There needs to also be a willingness to ask for help when it is needed in healing any of the wounds that are coming into consciousness. Aries is me, myself, and I. I can do it myself. And when it's retrograde in Libra, it's about being able to ask for help, to accept help. We can't always do it alone, even though we're all totally responsible for ourselves. There's a reason why we have 2 genders in our species, in most species. It allows for an acceleration of the immune system on the physical level. And it allows for this evolution of relationships as we learn how to relate to each other, one-on-one, larger groups, and eventually merging back with source energy itself. Time period to reconsider what we want to initiate in our life. And of course, I think that this will also be, especially for the US, but probably for many areas of the world with this next Chiron and Aries cycle, it's initiating a 51-year cycle of healing in general. So there will be this review and hopefully progression of healthcare worldwide. How many chironic cycles will it take before healthcare becomes something that is universal? We have the consciousness within ourselves, for those of us who are on the call, to say, duh, shouldn't we be there already? But we don't quite have that human will to do it. And I think that we could almost observe this expansion into universal or global healthcare through Chiron's circle. And of course, when it's direct, when it's retrograde, there can be an increase of anger and aggression when Chiron transit Aries, because of the frustration that builds up. Aries is just wanting to go, 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 go. Libra holds a container and feedback, and if we don't like it, we'll get frustrated. In its extremes, it is all the lone terrorists or wounded souls that go out there and do damage to themselves, do damage to others, because they don't have the wherewithal in some way to heal their wounds. Watch for Chiron's ingress into Aries to bring up this whole issue of mental health. Chiron, of course, works with all 4 areas of healing, as we talked with SMEP, but there seems to be an emphasis, at least in the United States. What are we going to do about the mental woundedness within souls? Now, Barbara Ann Clow thought that Chiron would bring an alchemizing process to whatever the evolutionary journey is of any planet and planetary aspects. So, in total, you can look at your transiting Chiron, progressed in solar arc, forecasting Chiron, and see how it affects your natal planets to get some picture of how forecasting Chiron is helping you heal. And of course, you can then reverse that and look at where any transiting, progressed, or solar arc planets are affecting Chiron. And I'm just realizing that I should put forecasting, not natal. I just saw a little Virgo detail. Excuse me. You guys got the hang of it with me. That needs to be to natal Chiron. I'm talking about the natal planets being forecasting right here. And of course, here's the biggie, as we'll see with our chart examples that we are going to work with. The Chiron in Aries transiting house is the leading edge of where we are making wounds conscious, making that effort to let go, bring things into the light, and do our healing. But it must always be related back to the natal Chiron signature. This is true with any planetary archetype. The forecasting planet, whatever it's doing, whatever aspects it's making, always relates back to that natal planetary signature. You don't get away from it. So it's looking back to seeing where is your natal Chiron by house and sign. What are its rulers by house and sign? What aspects is it making? And then that's how forecasting Chiron will have that alchemy process on natal Chiron and an alchemizing process with any natal planets it's also touching by its transit. And so, one more detail. There's something else I came across for something here that I'm going to put in as my notes are going. In general, if Chiron is going to be finishing up in Pisces all the way through 2018. So 2018 is a transitory year between Chiron in Pisces and Chiron in Aries. Chiron finishing up a 51-year cycle and Chiron initiating a 51-year cycle. So if we haven't been addressing the Piscean wounding, as Chiron has transited there over the last 7-8 years, then what we can do is we can recycle or project all those wounds and issues right into Aries, and it'll just move through the zodiac with us. And two of the big things that we have to look at with the distortions of Pisces is either the victimization consciousness, where we feel unworthy, we collapse upon ourselves, we don't have the Aryan initiative to start anew and make that new effort to heal whatever is showing up for us. Or we have that victor consciousness where, again, we lash out in anger at everyone else and we project it out there as they're the problem, not us. This is relating to all of the sadomasochism, excuse me, from the woundedness that we have in the Pisces Virgo archetypes. We can look at some of that tonight because we're going to use the example of the 6th house in tonight's class. So we'll bring some of those archetypes up in a little more detail. Here's what I was alluding to earlier when we can look at SMEP. I don't have this in here, but what wounding needs to be made conscious? What is unconscious within us, traumatized within us? How do we bring it to the surface? How do we release it? How do we give it back to source? How do we ask source to help us heal in a co-creative way? This is the spiritual. How do we listen for the feedback from the universe, especially when Chiron is retrograde? How do we listen inwardly to what our own inner self and higher self is saying? How do we listen outwardly for however the feedback comes from other people or experiences and situations in the universe? Included in that is how do we ask for help in healing ourselves whenever necessary. And then how do we apply that self-healing process of SMEP spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically? And then how do we literally take it in our world and initiate Aries, a new process in how we are going to move forward in our life? How do we take the wounds of natal Chiron and turn them into the talents that we can help others understand and heal with as well in their world? How do we take the leading edge of Chiron in Aries, moving through the 12 houses, and heal in those ways as well? So again, no matter what level, any wound or trauma is manifested on, sometimes there's no visible physical trauma, but we've got it emotionally or mentally or even spiritually. How do you apply that process, though, of healing on all 4 levels, regardless of the manifestation? Okay, we look at this material every week. Here's your slide on Chiron and Aries transiting through the 5th house. I don't have an exhaustive list, but hopefully I have a few key bullet points here for us that we can kind of spark what we want to work with this house transit. Of course, the 5th house is the active polarity. It is energy moving out from the center. It is the fixed modality, and it is the element of fire. Aries and 5th house is going to be a double fire element here for Chiron evolving. Probably one of the biggest things that we can have in regards to wounding here is believing that we can play God, believing that we are the source of healing energy, versus recognizing where the ultimate source of healing comes from and working to channel source's healing energy through ourself. And channeling it through ourself to heal ourself and facilitating the healing of someone else. You know, as I've said before, it's you know, we use the word healer, and really what we're doing is we're facilitating the healing energy for someone else. We all personally do our own healing. Very few of us can be a John of God where someone can just come into our presence and have a miraculous healing. This is the big thing that most of us do as healers. We channel the healing energy through us. Whether we channel it spiritually through just feeling that energy of source, whether we channel it mentally, emotionally, or whether we channel it physically with the laying on of the hands. What we're essentially doing is drawing it from the universe and bringing it through us and then sharing it with someone else as needed. This is a real biggie to get, and I think this is the ultimate gift of Chiron in healing. And so if you have this house transit, you have the ability to recognize where you have a distortion of thinking you are the source of this healing versus becoming more conscious of how you're channeling source through you. Now, what can also get wounded here is balancing our life force, and it can go from that extreme of having no life force. The element of fire is that creative spark, and the fifth house in Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun is the life force in the solar system. So whenever you look at aspects to the sun, whenever you look at transits through Leo or the fifth house, you're looking to observe how does the life force flow. And so Chiron through the fifth house, there can be a lack of life force, or there can be an over projection of the life force. We think we are superhuman and we can do anything and everything we want, and we don't have to take any time to rest. We don't have to take any time to pay attention to diet, exercise, and rest, or what the body may need in order to be able to function at its most optimum in life. And so this is a key distortion, again, to recognize with Leo in the fifth house. Too many times astrologers will assume that if you have planets in Leo or the fifth, there's an abundance of life force. And sometimes there isn't. And Chiron has to heal by calling upon the life force. Building it up would be what a Chiron transit would do here. And if we think we're superhuman and we just go, 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 we will reach a burnout, and Chiron will force us to rest. So there has to be a balance in that life force between bringing it up, drawing it up, moving it through us, and then recognizing when we need to slow down and rest. There can be creative blocks and wounding. You know, this is the house of creativity, and we want to share our creative gifts. And what can happen from the perspective of the fifth house is we will have a subjectivity around how we want to apply our creative gifts. And of course, it's that classic Aquarian polarity where you need to learn what it is that society or the group wants to receive. What gifts do they have need for versus just projecting out there what we want to do to feel creative. So there's that whole balance that Chiron and Aries through the fifth house is going to have to take a little time to detach and observe in order to then know where best to Search for the gifts of creativity and apply those creative gifts into society. We also will have wounding with giving and receiving love. It will easily be unequal in some way, the bottomless pit. No matter how much love I receive, it's never enough. And that can almost always be the case when we have not yet learned how to self-love. And Chiron in Aries through the 5th house is going to ask that we learn how to love ourselves first. We must fill up our own heart. And then whenever it's retrograde and the polarity points to Libra, there will be an emphasis on reaching an equality in some way between that giving and receiving. So anytime you feel wounded, that nobody loves you, that's just the message of where you need to love yourself. Of course, there can also be all the karmic wounding we received as children that will come up again, cycling around with Chiron and Aries through the 5th, revisiting those wounds in some way to heal them. In other words, the adult within us learning how to parent and love the wounded inner child within ourselves. This will then also include wounding with children that we may have in this lifetime, be it biological children or be it stepchildren. There can be some way in which there's karma to work out with children. And Chiron transiting through Aries in the 5th house is going to bring us all those situations kind of front and center into consciousness so that we can recognize what it is we need to address with our own inner wounded child, with the children that show up in our life. So many of us nowadays will have short-term, long-term opportunities to work with the stepchildren in some way as we go through all of these different relationships that we have in our world. And so how do you heal? How do you heal yourself? How do you heal with the children in your life? How do your children, bio or step, want to heal with you? All right, hopefully I've hit some of the key points for you. If there's anything you feel I'm not addressing, by all means, chat into the Q&A board. Leroy will either unmute you or bring it up for us to address. And so what I'd like to do now is just move into actual example for you. And I'm going to check in and see if by any chance we have our volunteer number 1 on the line. I'm also going to take a drink of water.
Volunteer number 1, are you there?
Is our volunteer live on the call, Leroy?
Well, it appears so on the board. I can't, I'm not omniscient enough to see if she's actually got a USB headset or earbuds on her computer, but she's showing up like she's unmuted. Are you there, volunteer number 1?
If you want, I can start in on giving some of our environmental conditionings for everybody. And volunteer, you were willing to speak up whenever you think you've got it. And Leroy, maybe you can give her a few key things on the Q&A while we're working through.
She knows that we're
looking at the
looking
chart.
for her. Volunteer one, you're unmuted on the board. I wonder if your earbuds are actually all the way in. Make sure your connector is put all the way inside your computer, because we're not hearing you. Most of those earbuds have like an 1/8 inch plug, and that needs to be placed inside the laptop or the computer.
All right, I'm going to let you continue to work with her. You can interrupt me if you need, but I'll let you work with her on the Q&A board. I'm going to continue to move forward with some of the environmental conditionings here. This volunteer had a difficult father. He was an alcoholic that would go into raging. Mother was very codependent. This volunteer is the oldest of 6 children. She was raised Irish Catholic, lower class. She married at 18. She had a disabled child at 21. And I bet you we have our volunteer.
Here, I finally figured it out. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello.
Sorry, I was here. I just couldn't get the microphone to work. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Sometimes it takes just a little bit. So I'll rattle off a few things and then we'll interact back and forth, okay?
Thank you, Kim Marie. Thank you.
Oh, you betcha. So she married at 18, disabled child at 21, husband died in a car accident. Her mother has passed within this last year, and she was in a current relationship, and that ended shortly after her mother passed away. So it's been a little turbulent as we watch Chiron in Aries and Pisces finish up here in the 4th house. She ended up moving 4 times while Chiron was transiting through her 4th house. As we look at this, first of all, we're dealing with a Sagittarian soul. We have Pluto in the 9th Sag house. It's retrograde. The North Node is almost 10 degrees past Pluto, just a few minutes. So she's just moving out of Pluto conjunct the South Node. South Node's over here at about 12 degrees Leo in the 8th house. This soul has, hold on a second, I got my little chart right here for her. Believe it or not, she has Chiron aspecting 8 different planets in her natal chart. Only Mercury and Venus are unaspected by Chiron. Chiron has sextiles to the sun and moon. As you can see here, born in the early 50s, we've got that Neptune, Saturn conjunction here, late Libra, both retrograde. Opposite Mars over here at 26 Aries, and within orb of having a T-square with Chiron. Chiron is full phase opposition to Uranus. It also, let me see what else I'm missing. Oh, a nice trine between Chiron and Jupiter. And Pluto has an inconjunct to Chiron. And if you want to, we can extrapolate this. Chiron sextiles to the moon and the sun creates the yod with Pluto. So here again, I think everybody who has a lot of Chiron aspects are the ones who end up volunteering for class, because we've just had a plethora of Chiron aspects with the first 4 charts. So just want to go in a little bit and speak to this natal Chiron, and then we'll look at the transits of what we're working through. This Chiron is a double Earth signature. Chiron at 20 degrees Capricorn is an Earth element. Chiron in the 2nd house is an Earth element. Of course, its ruler by sign is square. Last quarter square from Saturn up here at about 26 Libra retrograde, and its ruler by house Venus is over here just outside of a waxing square, but Venus is over here 0 Taurus in the 5th. So there can be some woundedness perhaps here around resources. Woundedness, of course, with the parental family, as she has explained in some of her environmental conditionings. If I remember, I think mother was a Virgo, and so all of these Virgo distortions that come through could perhaps be the situation with mom. Again, so much activity with Chiron from all these planets in general. Just as we've looked at it in previous charts, when you have a planet that is aspected, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 other planets, then it is really being activated to evolve in this particular lifetime. Now, ninth house Plutos, the essence is to just return to their authentic soul level, to really take those spiritual searches for truth. She is evolving beyond whatever pain there has been in intimate relationships from the past. And of course, again, Chiron here in this T-square with Mars, Neptune, Saturn will bring the woundedness with intimate relationships up for healing. It will also bring in the whole healing with the family of origin because of Saturn, because of Chiron in Capricorn, and because of its wide, it's only 5 degrees, because of its opposition to Uranus in Cancer, as we spoke before. This is a mini generation who has wounding as a child, wounding in the family of origin. So right off the bat with natal Chiron, we see wounding with perhaps resources, Capricorn second. We see the wounding in the intimate relationships due to the Grand Cross, if we want to extrapolate that from these cardinal planets. And we can see wounding from the family of origin as well. Now, let me just check in with volunteer before we move into the Chiron transit. Anything that's been sparking for you as you've been listening to the call? Anything?
I was just like, I'm amazed I survived all this Chiron stuff. It's like, wow. And I also forgot to mention I've had a lot of illness this year with all the Chiron stuff going on. So it's been this last year with Chiron being so active in my chart, it's been a tough year.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're just coming off of Chiron, off of your moon and your sun.
Yeah.
And of course, this year it's going to go over your Mercury retrograde at 0 degrees. I will say in general, as we are finishing up Chiron through Pisces, for those of you who don't know this, Pisces rules the immune system in general, and Pisces rules the endocrine system in general. There can be co-rulers to the endocrine system in various ways, but as we're looking at not only Chiron finishing up this transit through Pisces, we're also looking at Neptune finishing up a 165-year cycle in its own sign. It has another 8 years to go till 2025, 26. And so there's immune system issues in general for many people going on with Chiron and Pisces. For many people in general, they've had to really start paying attention to diet, exercise, and rest.
You are absolutely right. It was autoimmune. I am gluten, dairy, and nightshade free for the last 3 months. Yes.
Oh, how's it working?
It's working. So, you go with it. It's working.
All right. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well, and just to give our a little review of this Chiron in Pisces, your mother passed in January of, last year. And
Right.
so did she have health issues for a while?
Yes, she did.
And as the oldest of the children, are you the one who has to kind of step up to the plate, or do you have siblings who share? How involved are you with?
I was in California. She was in Chicago. My sister and brothers did a lot of it.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
were a little further removed. Father's still alive?
He passed a few years ago. He passed before my mom.
He passed before mom. Did he pass with Chiron in the 4th house? This would be Chiron in the 4th house would be the last few years. Hold on, I'll tell you when
No, he passed
Chiron.
before. He passed probably 6 years ago. My husband passed
Okay.
10 years ago, and I think my dad passed 7 years ago.
Okay, so transiting Chiron would have been in the 3rd house
Right.
when those happened in regards to that. And so as we, of course, you still got Chiron in Aries for half, or in the 4th house for half of its transit, and the second half is going to be here in the 5th house. So thank you for volunteering. As Chiron goes into Aries here in this 4th house, some of what we spoke about in last week's class, there really is some need to really honor any emotional wounding within you, anywhere where you have felt hurt by either parents. I would say with Chiron going over Mercury at 0 degrees Aries in this 4th house, you could be sparked periodically by all kinds of memories of things that happened in childhood.
Okay.
Mercury, things that happened with siblings, things that happened with mom and dad, because you were born on a balsamic new moon. And sometimes when you have both moon and sun in Pisces, there can be this disassociation, especially when anything gets too triggered emotionally. Pisces 4th house, your 9th house Pluto could just disappear.
Okay.
Okay. So there could be unconscious stuff that's going to come up here on emotional levels. And as it does, you want to work to be the, as we spoke before last week, universal mother to yourself.
Right.
Universal father to yourself. You want to be working to, parent yourself with source, connecting with source in whatever way, so that when Chiron does make this transit into the 5th house, you've done enough emotional healing and emotional new beginnings that you don't carry that arrest there into the 5th house. That's not to say that you still won't have memories coming up in the 5th house of where you feel wounded as a child. Do you take care of your disabled child full time?
I did till he was 21, and then he wanted to try a group home. So he's been there for a while. He's with 15 other people that are like him, around the same age. So he's really happy there.
Oh, good. Good. Who knows what may come up with this 5th house transit. There may be some things that might cycle up for him
Okay.
that you may have to take some time to address. Okay. Because, just 5th house with children. Now, in regards to work and career, do you work?
I do. I'm self-employed.
Okay. All right. So, probably some of the biggest things that I think are going to be coming up for you in regards to healing is the whole creativity thing. Mother passing, the last of the parents. Now it's just you and siblings. And when the second parent goes, there's this autonomy that comes through. And especially you as the oldest child that goes, oh my gosh, it's me, I'm it. And so there is in some ways a freedom opening up for you.
Right.
That can then have you, and also with the relationship that's ended in this last year, there is this, well, what am I going to do with myself when I grow up? That's some of what this Chiron transit is going to be working to heal. Now, I would say that it's going to bring more relationship intimacy opportunities. This is a big, with this T-square right here, this is going to be a big healing issue for this natal Chiron. So how can you, with this natal Chiron signature, how can you be the best lover you can be to yourself?
Okay.
Okay, the Chiron Uranus oppositions of the 50s and Capricorn Cancer, there's again another signature of healing whatever is wounded within us from childhood, this lifetime, previous lifetimes. Okay, and Chiron will come along and make a first quarter square to itself. It's going to make a last quarter square to this Uranus. So when it gets close to, you know, squaring these two planets, there can be another wave of emotional awareness of what is emotionally hurt and wounded within you, and making those efforts to heal it in whatever way. Okay, and then as you do that, after you do that, then Chiron will come in and start to hit this opposition with Mars and Saturn, Neptune. And of course, this was a mini signature all the way through 1952-53. And what happened, you know, what this will signify here is the Neptune and Libra generation in general, they had to look at where they projected the ideal onto a partner or a relationship and made that partner a de facto god goddess, and then had to deal with the disillusionment of the partner being a human being. So there's been lessening of learning to recognize where you wanted to make the partner responsible, Saturn, Neptune, for you and your happiness. This mini generation could feel, I don't know who I am without a partner. I can't quite get my world together, Saturn, without a partner. And this opposition over here from Mars, that's pretty darn tight with your natal Saturn. Saturn, these are both retrograde, but this Saturn retrograde pointing at this Mars and Venus new phase, I have to initiate being my own lover here. I have to initiate really learning how to take care of my own needs. Venus ruling Chiron by house. I have to be the best lover I can be for myself, to myself. I have to really learn how to take care of my own, again, needs in life. And then that's going to heal all this woundedness, or make a big effort to heal this woundedness in intimate relationships. So it starts with doing your own healing first.
Okay.
And then working through the family of origin stuff, and then taking a little bit of time to review how you yourself have projected onto partners and the need, the Libra neediness for the partner. And Chiron maturing, Chiron healing is going, it doesn't matter what the wound is. I am responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my own healing, and I'm responsible for my own happiness. So this Chiron transiting through this fifth house, okay, can open you up to a lot of healing because of how this fifth house is aspected natally. Now, the distortion to that would be, no one loves me. Who will love me? Everybody else has a partner. When will I have a partner? When will I have someone to love again? It can also be the distortions of, this is a strong signature to learn how to take care of your own needs. Okay, we see Venus and Mars. Yes, you're initiating new intimacy patterns in this lifetime, but it still goes down to Venus needs, Mars desires. I'm responsible for meeting my own needs and desires, and you're initiating a brand new cycle to do that. And that extrapolates out then into the 5th house of creativity. And to the degree that you work with whatever's unfolding out of you creatively, rather than pining for the partner, this opposition here, okay, this will allow this Chiron transit to just really, you know, open up for you, opening up the self-love, opening up creativity, and then eventually opening you up to new patterns of intimacy in relationships. And this transit can allow this natal Chiron to feel comfortable with itself versus having to do an isolation. Because another distortion of the natal Chiron signature could be, it's too painful to be in relationships. I'm just going to crawl in my shell.
Okay.
And you don't want to do that. That's not what that's not what you're meant to do. You're a 9th house Pluto. You're a Sag soul. You are a social soul.
Yes, that's true.
And you're meant to get out there and try all the variety of circumstances and opportunities and adventures in life. And of course, as you know, as you learn, if you can go to this polarity point and learn that relativity of truth and flexibility, then that can be a lot more open in helping transiting Chiron in this 5th heal this T-square, heal this wide grand cross. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I will address Jupiter square the nodes. Okay, when we have a planet square the nodes, skip steps. Jupiter square the nodes is skip steps in a simulation. That's the first thing that I look for when Jupiter is square the nodes. Yes, it's searching for beliefs. Yes, it skips steps in what to believe, but it's a skip step in applying beliefs. Okay, we've got to assimilate it and apply it into our life. Your Jupiter signature here being double Earth, Jupiter 18 Taurus in the 6th, having a trine to Chiron. If you make efforts with trying to provide for your own resources, there's a buildup of energy to see reward. Ease of effort, ease of reward with trine. The distortion with this trine here is going to be feeling victimized and I can never have enough money. And this could have been, reiterated coming from your environmental conditionings, okay? So you really want to be working to address this. And Jupiter's resolution node is the North Node, Aquarius 2nd house. The objectivity on emotional levels to go move forward. North Node, I am responsible for myself in every way. Not through isolation, but through recognizing that I can do this. I have the talents to create the well-being for myself. And if Jupiter will look at that this way, because what can happen with this Jupiter signature is there could be lifetimes where you made the effort to take care of yourself, but lifetimes where you were codependent upon the partner who will love me again. And that need to just be honest and go, I've got to take care of my own needs. Jupiter assimilating, recognizing, understanding that you're responsible for yourself. That allows this old karmic energy to draw in healthier and healthier mate.
Okay.
So back to Chiron's transit through the 5th house in Aries. Can you see how much it's there to open things up for you?
Well, I can, and it's interesting. It's almost like I feel like I've already started the work. I mean, I've been single basically 10 years and self-employed. So I'm way better at taking care of myself than I was 10 years ago. And obviously I still have more to learn. Yeah.
Well, and if you've been doing that, let's just back up again to Chiron's transit, through that 3rd house, all of a sudden overnight, your world changed.
Yes, it did.
And it was probably just a scramble,
It was.
to get past the shock, husband from a car accident, and then start this journey over the last 7-8 years of really working with your own emotional healing.
Right.
So you're right. You have been doing a lot of it already. As Chiron finishes up the 4th, you want to continue to do that work. And again, here it is activating you even more. When it gets to this 5th house, there could be an explosion of creativity for you.
Yay, good.
And then as you're doing that, to be able to remain in your own sense of self, your own life force, 5th house, versus being tempted to put it aside for the relationship. Okay? With this Saturn, Neptune signature, this mini generation right here, you cannot give up on yourself for a relationship.
Okay.
You've got to continue to do your own thing. And a healthy partner, a healthy relationship will naturally show up to be a part of it.
Okay, good.
Okay, if there's any partners that come along, well, I got the money. I'd like to just sail away into the sunset with you. I'll take care of you. All I want you to do is cook my meals. I would be real cautious.
Okay. Well, I'm a psychic medium, so I will confess I love my work. It helps.
Oh, good. Good.
Yes.
Good.
It does help. But you're right. The selling away is a little tempting.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And again, the 2nd house is where we originally come up with our talents. It's where we come up with what we do to provide for ourselves in every way. 2nd house, inner Venus, self-reliance, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. All right. And so Chiron has wounding around this from past lives.
Yes.
And so it really is for you to ultimately be responsible for all of your own material needs.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then that frees up all of this energy. It just frees you up to be who you authentically want to be.
Okay, good.
Okay. Now, let me ask you curiosities for you in regards to when Chiron moves into this 5th house. Questions on your end with anything?
No, I don't think so. I think that was just, it was amazing what you said. And I'm really happy that I can find a way to really release my creativity. Because really my ultimate goal is to be an evolutionary astrologer, is where I really want to go with helping people. And so that's my plan.
Oh, totally. Yes.
I'm hoping just for a piece of the amount of knowledge you have.
Well, practice, okay?
Okay.
that a lot of it is, the more charts you look at, whatever way you need to do it, the more it just helps you, evolve the archetypes and being able to understand everything.
Okay.
Yeah, let me check in, Leroy, if there's anybody on the board who has questions or anything. You know, you're more than welcome to interrupt. Let them ask questions.
Nope.
And I got to get that little bit of water down for myself. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank
so
you.
let me. Oh, well, one more thing.
Okay.
I'm looking at aspects here to see, okay, what did I forget with aspects? All right. Remember we talked about the yod?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. This yod right here. Okay.
Yes.
We have both sun and moon waxing sextile to this Chiron. All right. So even though Chiron double Earth initially feels like maybe all the wounding in the physical, all the wounding around the resources, sextiles are half a trine. Jeffrey Green would say decisions made at a waxing sextile follow the rest of the way the last 300 degrees around the circle. And so the family of origin woundings in whatever way they have happened, the wounding with universal source, Pisces, okay, we all have it. We can't have 8,000 years of patriarchal distortion without the vast majority of us feeling wounded to some degree and wounded with source, okay? So this sextile is opening up to the layers of emotional wounding from source down to family on intimate levels. Chiron is opening this up to be healed. All right.
Okay.
The yod with Pluto. Okay. First of all, Chiron is in a waxing inconjunct to Pluto. It's applying. It's got, a degree or two away. And so Chiron is really, I would just say this re-emphasizes the self-honesty.
Okay.
What happens with Sag souls, ninth house Plutos, is you always want to look for to what degree are we not honest with ourselves? To what degree are we not standing in our truth? To what degree do I compensate or adapt in some way in order to survive in my world? And this signature with this south node 10 degrees off of your Pluto, this gives us a degree that your compensating would come in the intimate relationships. What do I need to do to be loved? Who do I need to be? What do I need to believe? How do I need to organize my world in order to be loved? And we have a second reiteration as we spoke here with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which they, by the way, are in sextiles, but no yod, thank you. So this waxing inconjunct to Chiron in the yod, okay, there are time periods where you will need to be by yourself, to be self-reliant, to take care of all your needs. And it will show you where your own soul, Chiron will make these old Pluto distortions conscious. So you can more and more and more. And I'm not saying you aren't doing anything I've described, okay? You can reckon, oh, been there, done that, but that's been Chiron's purpose this lifetime, is it makes you feel uncomfortable and it makes you want to go inward when your own soul is compromising on itself to be secure in a relationship.
Okay, I understand that. I hide who I am. I hide my psychic ability in relationships. There's a hiding that I have done before. So yes, I have hidden myself in relationship with men, because men aren't comfortable with when you're psychic. So I have learned to hide, and I just in this last year have refused to do that. I'm really trying not to do that anymore, but that's my space of hiding.
Chiron over Mercury, gonna bust you out, girl.
Okay, good. I'm ready for it to not be hiding anymore.
And when Chiron transits through this 5th house, this is where you got to take that double fire signature and you got to bust out and break free and be who you are.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Just
Yay.
for sake of talking for everybody, Moon and Sun are, you start with Pluto, you start with the slower moving planet, you go 210 degrees more or less. They're waning in conjuncts. Waning in conjuncts are outer adjustment. It means the world or people come at us some way. And so, you know, literally, you will have people come and emotionally trigger you to the depth of your soul to have you go, wait a minute, I've got to unconditionally self-love me. Moon, balsamic, the sun. And so all the upsets, let's just call them that,
Right.
all the relationship disappointments, they've just been the catalyst to help you love yourself better.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So again, that outer inconjunct throwing you in upon yourself because of Moon, balsamic, Pluto, that then feeds back to your own soul and continues this search for being authentic.
Okay.
Being a 9th house Pluto and having ruler by house Jupiter be square the nodes, that's where that's again, they're as you said, hiding self.
Right.
And may have done it to literally survive.
Right.
May you and then did it to get along. Well, not anymore.
Okay.
Okay, it's
Yay.
there by signature in the chart, and this is the gift that transiting Chiron in Aries. I would say this for everybody. When you look at the chart and you read the karmic complex of the soul, where it's coming from and where it's intending to go, whatever that is, Chiron moving into Aries is initiating an entire new cycle. All these Piscean wounds that have been brought into consciousness, Chiron in Aries is going, no more pity pot. I am going to do it. And so whatever your evolutionary intent is, Chiron is activating it regardless of the house, just by being in Aries. And if you think back to part 1, where we went through the archetypes and cycles, and I gave you that listing of all the social upheaval that went on through Chiron in Aries 1968 to 1977, we're going to have the same thing, because everything that each of us are trying to do individually in healing our karmic dynamic and moving the soul forward, Chiron's going to have us collectively doing it as well. So how are you going to be a part of that group? And you, my dear, will bring your creativity out more and more and more. And I would say going forward in intimate relationships, even now with Chiron still in the 4th, I would not hide in an intimate relationship. I mean, you don't have to give the secrets of your underwear on the first date, okay? But
Okay.
it really will be. Do not hide who you are.
Okay.
Okay? Because you don't even want to waste your time, Aries 5th house, with anybody who can't accept you for what you are and what your talents are that you want to share.
Yes.
The more you say no, and this is going to be emphasized for this little Saturn, Neptune, Libra mini generation, the more you say no, healthy boundaries, Libra, The more you say no to what doesn't work in a relationship, the more the universe then responds to what you do want. A good old reverse psychology.
Right. I've been saying no, so it's a good thing. It was a new thing, but it was a good thing.
Good, 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 good. All right. Any other questions, volunteer?
Oh no, this has been such a gift. Thank you. It's been amazing.
You're most welcome. I appreciate each and every one of you showing up to let me give us some examples here. Let me check in with Leroy one more time for any questions. If not, I'll say thank you to
Thank
our
you.
fit. You bet. Thank you. And I'll move us on. And I'm going to take a drink of water again.
I'm going to go ahead and unmute volunteer number 2.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hi, Kim Marie and
Hi.
Leroy.
Thank you for volunteering.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. That last little volunteer, that was amazing. I could see a lot of my own stuff in that chart. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
excited. Thank you.
Yeah, we're finding that in each class because, you know, rarely do we have Chiron 0 degrees on a house cusp. There's a bleed, you know, as we're going around this zodiac. So everybody can relate to the volunteer who came before him.
Interesting.
Well,
Yeah, that makes sense.
well, let me work through my little sheet right here, or slide, and then we'll move into your chart. And so here we're going to look at Chiron in Aries moving through the 6th house. And of course, we've got the passive polarity, the mutable modality, and the element of earth. And of course, anybody who studies evolutionary astrology knows that the 6th house Virgo, the 12th house Pisces, is where we look in EA to see the wounding of the patriarchal and religious conditionings. And what do we see most? The sadomasochism. Taught to believe in a perfect God, imperfect humans. We recognize the imperfection. We feel that guilt. Guilt linked to atonement is the victim masochist. Guilt linked to anger is the victor sadist. So here we're going to look at where any of that sadomasochistic wounding is. We're going to be bringing it into consciousness to break free from it, and of course, heal. Heal in regards to our spiritual beliefs with the 12th house polarity, and just healing anything in general, 6th house, on that spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. And those healings will then, of course, be facilitating the need for us to come out as a quote unquote healer. Now, as I said, with the archetypes and cycles in part 1, coming out as a healer, yes, if you want to be an astrologer or a masseuse or a nutritionist, if you want to be directly in the healing arts, as we're going to call them, great, you can go for it. Chiron in Aries is going to initiate many of us into those paths. It's not limited to that, though. It doesn't have to go in that direction. And I'm not saying this is what volunteer, the 6th house volunteer is. I'm trying to say this in general. Becoming the healer is as simple as holding healing space on planet Earth. Whether you collect the garbage or install the new furnace in a house. We just got a new furnace. My room is warm. So holding that healing space in whatever way to see planet Earth heal, that's a healer. As simple as holding the energy, okay? With it, you know, being a Mercury ruled house, there is going to be an emphasized need for calming the mind, for healing any of the mental distortions, for coming forth with the new affirmations. And by the way, if you haven't heard this before, Jeffrey Wolf Green's self-hypnosis exercise for healing the unconsciousness. I have that at the end of all 6 of these classes. So I'll go into detail with that specific exercise for you with the last of the slides, okay? You know, many of us, again, when Chiron was discovered in the late 70s, oh my gosh, the mind-body connection. Energy flows where attention goes. Thoughts are things. And if you participated in the first part, you heard me try to teach, not preach, what comes between the mind and the body, the heart. And so this is something to know for this house transit. You know, this transit is going to get that mind-body connection. They're going to recognize that. And the healing is to slow down, calm that nervous system, and take a deep breath and feel the healing energy with your heart. You can do that with any of the house transits, but when we work with Chiron and Aries transiting 3rd, 6th, it can bring in 7th and 11th, the air houses, the Mercury ruled houses. There will be that nervous energy that can build up. So again, here especially, you want to just really bring the heart into connect the mind and the body, especially with the healing, and to calm down the mind, to calm down the body. One of the other classic wounds that Chiron could have here when it moves through the 6th house is either an inertia, that famous excuse making and procrastinating. I'm not ready. I can't come out and do this. Or the opposite, too much work, the workaholic, working yourself to the bone until you literally collapse or have a crisis. And so Chiron and Aries will wake you up to these 2 patterns if you have one or the other, or vacillate back and forth. It'll wake you up to just help you either find the courage if you're on the inertia side, or to help you just literally slow down and take some time to rest if you're trying to go, 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 go. And of course, as EA always used to say, when you're the workaholic and never slowing down, it's because we don't want to slow down and look at the void in our world. And the ultimate void for Virgo in the 6th house is the polarity 12th Pisces, and feeling the lack of source in our life. So Chiron and Aries through the 6th, polarity Libra 12th, you really have to learn how to have that relationship with source energy, warts, farts, and all, as I like to say. So there needs to be this initiative through all the imperfections. 6th house is always that cup half empty. What's wrong with it? Well, Chiron in Aries is going to be the courage to work through something, to start something, to become the healer through practice, to make the effort in healing yourself again, 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 to be the healer who can accept help from source, 12th house polarity, to accept help from others. You know, this house transit can get so caught up in also Aries 6, I've got to do it myself. I can do it myself. It can almost perhaps be seen as weakness to have to ask And when you got 12th house as the polarity to the transit, you got to be asking for help from source. It's a co-creative process with source. And if you ask for the help from source, if there's an intermediary that needs to show up, source will put them on your doorstep to help. So as we talked before, learning to balance work and rest and just honoring the signals and moving one direction or the other, however necessary. This is where we learn to serve, where we learn to be of service and help to others with healthy boundaries. If you're overdoing it and doing too much for everybody else, that's a chironic wound that is going to be exposed, so that you go, wait a minute, I will help those who want help, and I'll hold healthy boundaries with those who want me to do their work for them. And if I don't have my own self-worth and I try to do to make amends, Chiron is going to point out when I have to go inward and do my own spiritual work and my own resting as well. You know, that observed correlation and so much conditioned guilt on planet Earth. You can become the healer here and do too much for too many people without holding healthy boundaries, because you've been so conditioned into the guilt that, again, you run yourself ragged. If it is a natural guilt, then it will arise within you that this is what it's mine to do, that you've really got to have an ability to objectify it. Especially when you look at the Pluto and Virgo generation, which our next volunteer is a part of. That Pluto Virgo generation can get so caught up in that conditioned guilt, they don't have an objectivity of what is theirs to do and how to hold healthy boundaries. And then, of course, it also will then come down to what can the body physically do or not do. You know, this is the house transit where we need to make the initiations with diet, exercise, and rest in some way. And if we went the extreme of the exerciseaholic or, you know, just extremes of, you know, it's going to be unique to each and every person. For some people, they will have to be strict with diet. For others, they'll hold the strictness to the degree of punishment. It's going to be an individual pro and con thing of how you work with diet, exercise, and rest, but you recognize where you're holding it to any extremes of guilt in unhealthy ways. All right, there's some archetypes for us to work with. This volunteer for Chiron and Aries transiting through the 6th house is the Pluto and Virgo generation, as I said, and we drew in a 1965 baby. So we have the nodes square Uranus by pulling it in because of the square to Pluto, the square to Mars, and over here opposing the square to Chiron. So here is a chart example in which we actually have Chiron square the nodes of the moon. Father died when this volunteer was 3 years old, Chiron in the 4th. Mother kind of checked out. She was on tranquilizers most of her life. It got a little better when she married for the 2nd time. She also passed away last year in 2017. Both of our volunteers have mothers who passed last year. This volunteer, instead of being the oldest, was the youngest of 3 girls. Both sisters had various emotional, psychological issues. Mother was very manipulating around the finances and put a lot of negative conditioning on to this particular soul. She had a variety of dysfunctional relationships, finally married at 34, married to a wonderful, loving soul. He passed away in 2013. She's currently in a relationship, and we have another volunteer who does a lot of alternative work, energy worker, intuitive reader, and budding astrologer as well. So let's just look at this natal chart for a moment. We have a Capricorn soul with Pluto here in the 10th house in 16 Virgo retrograde. Uranus was, she's January 1965. So Saturn hasn't moved into the opposition, which it did late 1965. It got close enough to be involved in these oppositions and planets square the nodes, but she was born with Uranus balsamic Pluto in Virgo, both of these retrograde, and here's Mars new phase Pluto at about 26 Virgo in the 11th. Now, Mars being so close to Pluto, 10 degrees off, this soul has had 1, maybe 2 or 3 lifetimes as a 10th house Pluto cycling around again. I'm not saying it's the first time in her soul's long evolution that she's ever had a 10th house Pluto. There is a new cycling for a 10th house Pluto here with Uranus new phase Pluto. And as we've spoken before, Mars new phase Pluto. Uranus balsamic Pluto means she's really trying to bring all of the wounding and trauma of the Virgo generation and the 10th house up to the surface in order to be healed and released. And so for most of these 1965 souls, and especially when they have planets square the nodes here, it can be quite karmic. It can feel like they're a revolving door of deja vu. Because planets square the nodes is skip steps. The planet moves back and forth between the 2 nodes, not really incorporating the planetary lessons and evolving it. And we've got 4 planetary archetypes square the nodes here. So this soul can feel, again, like, oh my gosh, haven't I done that? Haven't I done that? I got to do this again. Uranus balsamic Pluto, you will do it however many times is necessary until you break free. Chiron over here is in a full opposition to Uranus, and Chiron is in a gibbous opposition to Pluto. So we're going to look at this first. Chiron is a double water in this signature. Pisces, the soul's just had a Chiron return in the last couple of years. And of course, the Chiron in the 4th house, as we've looked, there's been the wounding in the family of origin and as a young child, even for this particular soul. Now, the Chiron is, as we have had an example before, sitting on the Pluto polarity point. Chiron is wanting to heal any woundedness in regards to her ultimate beliefs, healing any woundedness that has bought into the sadomasochisms of society and religion in any way. Many of these souls who have the signatures of 1965 and the whole mutable quadrant activated, they're old healers. They're the witches and the shamans that, you know, like many of us, you know, burned at the stake, you know, persecuted, crucified, whatever terms you want to use in some way, because they've got a south node over here in Sag. Now, when a planet is square the nodes, both nodes are active in past life. So this Chiron signature right here, square the nodes, is going to be the skip steps as a healer. There's going to be the woundings here as the healer. And of course, if we start with Chiron and reverse through the zodiac or houses as the nodes move, the resolution node for Chiron is the south node at about 22-23 Sag. And conjunct Mercury, which has rulership of the north node, conjunct Venus, which has rulership of the south node by house. So something about the woundedness of Chiron as a healer, the family of origin wounding, the spiritual wounding, is going to be resolved by looking back, south node, at where it was distorted in regards to the beliefs that this soul could take care of itself. See how this will be reiterated by a 10th house Pluto, Mars new phase, healing all of those distorted beliefs that you cannot take care of yourself. This can be another signature if we just for a moment go over here and look at this north node signature in Gemini 8th. Well, how should I play the game to be secure, to be loved, to have a partner? And ruler by sign, Mercury is back here going, it ain't gonna work to play the games or the lies. The truth is going to be exposed because you want to heal. So Chiron is continually having to refer back to, what is the truth about myself? Mercury, Venus. And what is the truth about myself and my ability to survive and take care of myself in every way? Now, I kind of have been emphasizing the Chiron. As Chiron goes back to this past on a very personal level, and yes, it will also have this soul kind of going in to her own cave once in a while. But she'll come out again, because Sag wants to be able to express and act and go on the adventures. She will come back out again. She will bring this, she's meant to bring the healer back out again and move through processing all this wounded healing. And again, doing the healing is going to allow this, this, for these 1965 babies, and I'm going to call them babies, when you have Chiron sitting on the polarity point, can you just see how they've got to come out as a healer in some way again? And it could be anything and everything. She could be in the traditional allopathic world working as a nurse. The possibilities are as varied as the souls in question. The Pluto and Uranus square the nodes with these two. It's going to reiterate and emphasize the wounding around patriarchal distortions versus natural law, and where she's bought into that in order to survive. It will also emphasize the wounding in the intimate relationships, and perhaps even with some sexuality issues with the nodes here, and 4 planets square the nodes. Mars is square the nodes as well. What you can have happen with this the 1965 charts is you can also have the whole issue of the lies versus truth. Nodes, Gemini, Sag. And sometimes it wasn't that there was an outright dishonesty. There was just what I will call the games to survive, the stories to survive. But they got it caught in some way and took on all this guilt. So again, Uranus, balsamic Pluto, Mars there, all three of them square the nodes. You've got to have some objectivity around what am I guilty for versus what am I not guilty for. And if you don't have any objectivity around that, Saturn, structure of consciousness with Chiron here, will just take on more guilt rather than break free. The beauty, this Neptune up here inside the Scorpio ascendant, there's an ability to be psychologically deep with self. Where did I manipulate? Where did I tell the story? Where did I lie? And how do I break free from it? But it will also give some ability, especially over time in maturing, to go, wait a minute, I'm bought into some BS. I've got to break out of it. Okay, volunteer. I rattled enough. Let me hear from you.
Wow. That's a lot. Thank you so much. It's really interesting about, I want to go back a little bit to the sixth house about taking care of yourself, and a lot of what you said about that. I'm really doing that right now, coming out of patterns of workaholism. For example, I'm off work this week. I took this whole week off, which for me is really juicy and wonderful. So I'm starting this week doing this, so that's great. Very accurate about the lying, the breaking through of that. What's really interesting too is I really do identify as an empath, and I've written a book on that, and you can of course see that with the Neptune in the first house. The guilt thing is a theme in my work as far as how to clear and release the guilt. So that's very, very accurate. That's been very much a theme of, me realizing that so much of the stuff I took on was not even mine. Especially being like a little psychic sponge, right? With that Scorpio and all the Pisces. So yeah, I mean, and also again, having drug addiction on my family, my mother and my sister being on drugs and having this weird convoluted environment. So yeah, this is definitely very accurate. I'm very much feeling that Sag Gemini, very much a seeker of truth. I've always been that, kind of a bigger truth and also my own. So yeah, I mean, this is wonderful. It really does ring very, very true. So thank you.
You bet. I should also say the resolution node for these three planets going reversing is the North Node in Gemini. And this, that's this energy right here, just really learning to stand in how you identify with yourself. This is truth for me. This is not truth for me. And going almost going deep with that, because Virgo can just slide all over the place. And being a 10th house Pluto, Capricorn souls can take on a lot of family conditionings, and they can suppress who they authentically are as well. And so this is really breaking free and saying, this is who I am and this is who I'm not. Gemini. I like to say sometimes Gemini, has to learn how to make a choice. And that can be reiterated here with this Virgo Gemini situation. Now, I didn't say also, you have 6 Chiron aspects, okay? Wow. Yeah, I mean, you can, the moon is a semi-square from Chiron. It's just moving into it. It's still new phase. So you're trying to still do a lot of emotional breaking free. All right. Chiron has the sextile with the sun. It has one with Jupiter. And of course, you have the Earth Grand Trine here, which not every 65 soul is going to be able to have a grand trine in the chart. This does give some relief from all the skip step energy of what to believe and what to think, and just feeling everybody else so much in here. You've got some grounding energy with this trine, especially when you call on it. You also could, being Earth, you have to watch a little bit of a laziness if that's there, but that may not be the case with all that Virgo energy and Uranus, Mars, all right? And then, of course, we see the oppositions that are going on here, and we even, you know, the nodal squares. Okay, so you see that, and I didn't count the nodes. Okay, the nodes add on to the 6 planets we talked about. So even you, lots of Chiron planets. Let's work with the forecasting. Okay, first of all, everything that we said in the first class about having the creativity coming out, Chiron's transit through Pisces in the 5th house over the last few years. You've got 2/3 of the Chiron transit, Aries in the 5th house. So yes, a lot of creativity that you will be continuing to work with. Healing your own inner wounded child, as we talked before. You don't have any children, do you?
No, I do not. Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. You may find him in your life some way, you know, just, you know, really reflecting upon where you feel any lack of self-love and really working with it. And when we self-love, it just, it spontaneously opens up creativity. It changes the inner magnetism of the soul and then magnetizes to us whatever we need in our life, whoever we need in our life in regards to the whole creativity. Now, I had neglected to say this for the Chiron transiting through the 5th house. You would still want to call on Source. How do I be of service to the world? How do I be a healer with all of my creative talents? So both the 5th house volunteer and our 6th house volunteer, you can call on Source no matter what house the Chiron and Aries transit is. But you know how 5th house wants to be the source of creativity and you've got to call it through you from Source? You would want to work with that. And you'll be amazed at how it just spontaneously shows up, comes through, is attracted in when you acknowledge where the ultimate source of creativity is. When you ask that ultimate source of creativity to come through you. Then, as Chiron moves into the 6th house, this is where all of the healing work can have some opportunities as well to just spontaneously take off, to find new ways to heal, to be able to really feel like you're doing planetary work. And it'll be as varied as the souls are. Again, this 1965 chart, there's so many lifetimes of having your healing work aborted. It can feel like it's start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And when Chiron comes through this 6th house, and it will be your 2nd transit through the 6th house. The last time, you know, was going to be almost 60 years ago when it moves through, you know, this 6th house. So this is the fruits of your labors. This is the rewards to whatever healings Chiron has been attempting to make and recognize with its opposition to Uranus, Pluto. This is the rewards for whatever you have had to go back and really source your own truth and try and honor your own responsibilities and your own values and needs. And you can be working on that as it goes through the 5th, so that when it gets to the 6th house transit, the healer can have its rewards. You know, the distortions, if you weren't doing your work, and, you know, almost all of us who are showing up for this Chiron series, we want to do the work. You know, it doesn't mean that we're all completely successful. Every one of us will have some area where we're not, but for the most part, we're wanting to do the work. So we can move that forward. For someone else, these distortions, it could bring a work crisis, it could bring a health crisis, it could bring something to the surface that needs to be balanced in that whole work rest energy that we talked about before. I would say personally for you, with the moon in late Aries, you're going to have Chiron go over it. I had said generically with the 6th house, you understand the mind-body connection, but you have to open up and welcome in the emotional body. That's going to be emphasized for you here with this transit. So the more that you can include, how does it feel with whatever sparks intuitively, with whatever you want to then do for work in the world. How does it feel? How does it feel? How does it feel? Bring the emotions in as much as possible with this moon signature, and it will allow the healing work to be more and more and more effective. You have Chiron in Pisces, okay? Your healing gifts can come through emotionally. You have it in a trine to the moon, it's to Neptune and Scorpio, just inside the ascendant. You've got that ability to just kind of intuitively know what needs to be healed emotionally. Make an effort to kind of bring that through, because this chart signature can get so caught up in its head, okay? You want to not neglect, yes, you want to not neglect this double water Chiron signature. And you want to bring that emotional energy into this mental house transit. And that will really help your healing work be more effective.
That's great.
Even no matter, even if you're using astrology as your tool, you know, you can be looking at a chart, and you know, some astrologers ask for all the environmental conditioning before they look at a chart. When I'm teaching, I always want that environmental conditioning because it just saves time and it gives us orientation to the chart. When I'm working with clients, I don't get that environmental conditioning ahead of time. I don't have the time to read 5 pages of typewritten notes. I do it live on the phone. I'm listening with my ear. I'm listening to the voice. I'm listening to how they language. However, even if you're working with astrology, you can ask and intuit, what do I feel? What do I think's going on? And then you can practice and see, is that the feedback? Is that the observe correlate I actually get from the client? If you listen to me, you've heard me say in the teachings, be careful not to project, but you can start bringing in that emotional signature with this natal Chiron signature. What do I want to know emotionally? How do I want to heal emotionally? I'm doing it because Chiron in Aries is fire and the 6th house is earth. And I'm saying this because of this natal chart signature in fire and mental, okay? And I should say 6th house, not so much 6th house earth, but 6th house inner Mercury, you know, that'll bring in the mental with that. Now, Chiron in Aries through the 6th house, there can also be some impatience. Aries. Oh my gosh, I've already done this. Do I have to do it again? I've already done this. Do I have to do it again? I want to jump ahead. I want to jump through the hoops. You know, we can do this with any house with Chiron. There needs to be an effort to really apply that methodical earth element to what is it I need to do step by step in my healing process. And relative to this chart example and 4 planets, square the nodes, there could really be an emphasis on jumping ahead rather than walking, talking, living the way through the healing process. So even for you, volunteer, when Chiron in Aries moves through this 6th house, with all of the signatures in your chart, there's going to be a whole nother layer of healing yourself that is going to come through. And it could come through on all 4 levels, okay? But you will, I would say, in general, with this house transit, you would want to make an effort to be participating and receiving the healing from others, the healing from the universe. You would want to be on the receiving end of the healing as much as you want to be bringing it out yourself. And it can be almost like a revolving door. You're asked to step up to the plate as a healer. You do it. You honor that message to rest. And then you know that it's your turn to be on the receiving end of healing until you feel recharged and you cycle back out as the healer. And big cycles, little cycles, however that revolving door works between healing and healed. Make sense?
Wow, so accurate. I'm just, yeah, incredibly, makes a lot of sense. Could I ask you just a quick question? So how long is this going to, does the transit last again? If you don't mind me asking that again, how long will that be? Till
it'll be through, it'll be through 2027. Okay, that's when Chiron goes into Aries. And for you specifically, you're going to have Chiron go back and forth between 5th and 6th house 5 times, 2 retrograde cycles in 2023, 24.
Thank you.
So you'll have it in the 5th house through 2023. 2023 to 2027. In Aries will be the emphasis of what we've been just speaking about here.
Okay, so that's in the future.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm feeling that a lot now, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to feel a lot of the creativity because it's in that 5th house. Okay. And when this Chiron in Aries transit goes through the 6th house, again, Barbara Hand Clow thought that Chiron ruled the 6th house. So when it transits through that 6th house, regardless of the sign, it can emphasize all the wounding coming up. It can emphasize, oh my gosh, like I said earlier, I have to do another layer again. I mean, if you're an astrologer drawing in clients, you will learn to recognize somebody saying that. And my response to people is a joke. I say, we don't stop healing until we take our last breath.
Yeah.
So until you take your last breath, yes, you can do it again and again and again and again, and I, kind of lighten it up. They joke, but, we make it a joke, but it's the truth. And so then it's like, yeah, we're all doing it. The other thing that I have a tendency to say a lot of times to people, and, especially Pluto Virgos, Pluto Leos, I say your soul doesn't give a damn what your chronological age is. The lesson comes when the lesson comes. Now for you, with all of these mutable archetypes emphasized in your chart, you're going to have all kinds of layers come to the surface when Chiron transits the 6th house. As it gets that year or two before 2021, 22, and gets closer and closer, you're just going to feel these layers of wounding cycling back around again with that intent to be healed.
Thank you.
Let's check in with everybody else. Are there any questions from the board or anything, Leroy?
Quiet here.
Okay. All right. I know I'm putting some emphasis on the natal chart and natal Chiron, but as you can see, Chiron has been quite active so far in the first 6th house transit, and that's that bottom line that the transiting Chiron in Aries signature is activating to heal. So in this case, it's going to bring the healer back out, and the healer is going to go through her own healing all over again.
Wow. It's pretty powerful. Better be ready for that.
Just remember, Chiron's in Aries. It's break free, break free, break free, break free.
Right.
You know, you got to be pretty old to have it come around, to cycle around again in this lifetime. So, hey, I'm going to make the best of it and do it.
You know what I like about it is that, you know, you talked about how it's the I am, right? Like that high aspect of the Aries, you know, the spiritual warrior and that archetype.
Yes.
I like that. I can, you know, relate to that.
Yes. How do I turn the wounded warrior into the spiritual warrior? I think we're going to see Chiron and Aries bring us a whole nother wave of spiritual warriors and spiritual activism on planet Earth. Because this Chiron aspect is kind of in tandem, you know, with, you know, coming out last cycle, Chiron was coming off of the Uranus-Pluto conjunctions. This Chiron in Aries cycle, it's coming off of the Uranus-Pluto squares. And so that might be the base note that's activating Chiron as much as anything else. So whatever we didn't get done coming out of the 60s and 70s, kids, we got another chance. All right. So thank you, volunteer. And
Thank
any
you
questions?
so much.
Oh, you're most welcome. Any questions on the board, Leroy? You're just welcome to interact or interrupt me as we go through our last few slides. Here's my little Chiron in Aries of the feminine and the masculine, giving fair energy to both of the archetypes. The spiritual warrior can be feminine and masculine. My invocation. Spirit of God, Goddess, come through me. Mind of God, Goddess, speak through me. Heart of God, Goddess, love through me. Body of God, Goddess, I am. I've been saying that one for about 30 years. Here is the rest. We're going to have class on Wednesday going through houses 7 and 8, and then we'll have one more week after that. We have been starting to take enrollments for Uranus and Taurus Part 1, going through the archetypes and cycles. I'll take a week off when I get done with Aries, so I can do Mercury retrograde through Aries. And then we'll repeat the similar cycle with Uranus. I have had all the oppositions in for you in each one of these charts, so you can just see almost every chart we're going to look at. Chiron's going to be in opposition to something. I'm waiting to see if we get a chart that doesn't have a Chiron opposition in it. Good luck with that one. And then here's Jeffrey Green's unconsciousness reprogramming exercise. And it's a self-hypnosis tape that you make. And you take every negative belief, thought, emotion, event, and you write a positive self-healing statement or affirmation. You use first-person present tense language. You make a recording of it, and you play it every night before going to sleep, and you only listen to it in the right ear, right to receive. This will be in your own voice. And again, you want to listen to it each and every night for 4 to 6 months. I've known people who've done this for 2 years. The point is that you want to reprogram the unconsciousness, because while we want to make that Virgo effort to do our affirmations, who hasn't posted an affirmation on their bathroom mirror? We do those affirmations consciously to make that day in, day out, moment by moment, year by year effort to heal and reprogram consciously. But we also have to do it unconsciously. And we don't all have access to a partner who can do deep memory processing, past life regression on us. This is Jeffrey's method of reprogramming the unconsciousness with a self-hypnosis tape. And so I thought with Chiron in Aries that it would, doing a Chiron series in general, that this would be something that I would bring out and share again for those of you who have never heard of this. And so here's my directions that I've come up with on how to do this for those of you who are interested. So you'll have that in your PDFs to refer to. Okay, that's it for tonight's materials. Last call for any questions from anybody. All right then. Thanks again to our 2 volunteers. Appreciate it very much. I will see everybody in 2 nights, Wednesday night, as we look with our volunteers through the 7th and 8th houses with Chiron's transit in Aries. Good night, everyone.